Last Thursday became a personal record in professional embarrassment, and honestly, I'm still trying to recover. I had one simple responsibility: present our weekly results to my small team. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't high stakes. It was supposed to be 10 minutes of graphs, a few comments, and then I could go back to pretending I was busy. The morning felt unusually smooth, which already should have warned me something terrible was coming. I arrived early, set up my laptop, checked my slides twice, and even made myself tea. For a brief, delusional moment, I believed I had my life under control. I walked into the conference room we usually used, connected the projector, and took a second to breathe. Right then, a group of people I barely recognized walked in. I assumed they were using the room for their own meeting before mine, so I stepped outside to check the schedule with the office administrator. They told me my team should be assembling right about now. I headed back to the conference room, and that's when the chaos officially began. The room was now full. My laptop was already mirrored on the big screen, and everyone was staring at me, waiting. I didn't question it. My brain simply decided that if people are looking at me like I'm supposed to speak, then I must be exactly where I'm meant to be. So I started presenting. I launched into the slides with absolute confidence, explaining weekly performance trends, congratulating the team on their productivity, talking about future goals, and basically delivering an improvised TED Talk about workplace momentum. My tone was so motivational that even I would have believed I knew what I was doing. The people in the room listened with an expression I misinterpreted as deep focus. In reality, it was collective confusion at a level few workplaces ever experience. But I didn't notice that. When my brain enters autopilot, it fully commits. And this time, it committed to being some kind of corporate life coach. Around the halfway point, something felt off. Nobody was taking notes. Nobody was nodding. Nobody looked even remotely familiar. I scanned the room and realized, with growing horror, that I didn't recognize a single person. Not one. It was like speaking to a room full of NPCs generated 5 minutes ago. Finally, reality punched through the fog. This wasn't my team. This wasn't my meeting. And this wasn't even the room I had booked. I had confidently walked into a completely different department's strategy session and delivered a motivational presentation that made zero sense to anyone in the room. And because I started so boldly, not one person had the courage to interrupt me. Once the truth hit, panic flooded in. My brain desperately tried to figure out how to exit without looking like someone who had just hijacked a corporate milestone meeting. I wrapped up my presentation as gracefully as I could, closed my laptop, said something vague and polite, and walked out of the room with the haunted calmness of a person who has accepted their fate. Outside, standing in the hallway, was my actual team. They had been waiting by the door of the correct conference room, confused about why I wasn't showing up. I had essentially abandoned them while motivationally lecturing strangers. Later, I found out that the department I accidentally spoke to assumed I was some kind of outside consultant brought in for a surprise morale session. They apparently appreciated the enthusiasm and asked the administrator if I would be coming back. Now, every time I walk past that department, someone gives me a thumbs up like I personally saved their quarter. Meanwhile, my own team jokes that I'm too inspirational to work with them directly and might leave to pursue a career as a freelance corporate preacher. So now the running joke in the office is that twice a month, I apparently inspire the wrong department because my brain refuses to recognize the people I actually work with.
A few days ago, I learned that no amount of self-improvement podcasts can prepare you for unexpectedly seeing your ex in the wild. I was having a normal morning at a cafe near my apartment, feeling extremely proud of myself for being productive before noon. I had my laptop open, my coffee perfectly positioned, and I was convinced the day was going in a healthy direction. That confidence lasted about 4 seconds, because the moment I looked up, I saw my ex walking toward the counter. It had been almost a year since we broke up, and in my head I had built this comforting belief that I had emotionally evolved into a totally stable human being. But my brain took one look at her and immediately crashed like an outdated operating system. She noticed me almost instantly, and I felt this overwhelming pressure to demonstrate that I was calm, mature, and completely over everything. My body, however, chose a different path. When I stood up, I bumped my table hard enough to launch my coffee across the surface. It didn't just spill, it flooded the entire area like it was actively trying to drown my dignity. Trying to fix the mess, I grabbed my bottle of water, squeezed too hard, and sprayed half of it onto my shirt. Within seconds, I looked like I had lost a fight with basic liquids. While I was still processing the damage, I realized someone else had walked up behind her. It took me a moment to recognize him, but then it hit me, her new boyfriend. I had seen him online before, and he looked exactly as put together in real life as he did in photos. For some reason, my stressed-out brain decided the best way to look confident was to act overly cheerful, which resulted in me giving him this enthusiastic energy that made absolutely no sense. I congratulated him on something vague that he clearly had not done, based on the confusion on his face. Wanting to seem even more unbothered, my brain then made the bold decision to oversell my personal life. I accidentally implied that I was engaged, something so wildly untrue that even I was surprised to hear it come out of my own mouth. I wasn't dating anyone, I wasn't talking to anyone, and I definitely wasn't in a place emotionally where I could be trusted with anything involving rings. By this point, the situation had spiraled into the kind of social disaster that you replay later in the shower while wondering how you're even allowed in public. I tried to recover by talking about my career and how well things were going, but the words came out in the style of someone desperately trying to sound impressive while silently drowning in embarrassment. Eventually, the three of us drifted into that polite goodbye stage. Once they walked away, I finally took a breath and looked around the cafe. My table was soaked, my shirt was a mess, and my laptop had a thin layer of water that sparkled under the lights, like evidence of my poor decision-making. A barista quietly handed me extra napkins with the kind of expression people usually reserve for disaster survivors. When I finally sat back down, I realized the truth. My attempt to look calm and emotionally mature had turned into a performance piece about panic, clumsiness, and denial. And instead of proving how over everything I was, I basically demonstrated that I still crumble under pressure like a paper straw. But honestly, the good news is that the moment it was over, I felt a weird sense of relief. Because once you accidentally pretend to be engaged in front of your ex while covered in 2 different beverages, nothing worse can happen. From now on, every awkward moment in my life will feel manageable in comparison.